This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Yunxiao smiled wryly when he saw the two's murderous gazes fall on him. Judging from their fight just now, their strength was not much different from Mo Xiaochuan's, even if they were not as strong. He said awkwardly, "Don't look at me like that. I don't have any treasures on me." This big bearded man's guess was right. I was hunted down because I slept with his wife. There's no other reason. Yu Qijin revealed a strange smile and laughed. How could he have a wife? That dirty old man loves to rape virgins. Every time he's done with them, he'll throw them into his blood sea to refine them. How could he have a wife? So evil? Yunxiao frowned. He's so perverted. These people have their own hobbies. They're pretty good. Hand over the treasure and you can live, Yu Qijin said with a playful smile. Otherwise, there will be even more abnormal things waiting for you. Your sister. Yunxiao gave him the middle finger and gave him a disdainful look. Not good. Huayin suddenly said. Don't run. After Yunxiao cursed, he turned into a thunderbolt and was about to escape, disappearing before their eyes. Huayin's aura surged, and sparks flickered all around her, covering an area of several thousand meters in an instant, as if forming some sort of law. When Yunxiao's thunderbolts rushed into it, they were blocked by the irregular sparks that filled the sky. With every collision, a ball of sparks would burst out, and Yunxiao's thunderbolts would change direction. It took them a few breaths of time to collide with each other, and only after letting out a series of rumbling sounds like firecrackers did they manage to travel hundreds of meters. Damn, there's actually such a strange move in the world. Yunxiao was dizzy from the impact. When he came out of his hiding place and looked at the sparks that filled the air around him, he could not help but curse. Yu Qijin laughed. Huayin's Starfire Prairie is similar to a martial honors domain, but it's many times stronger. It's the nemesis of all escape techniques. She laughed as she condensed his aura and pushed it forward. Wherever the pressure passed, sparks scattered in all directions as if they were blown by the wind, and the pressure was directed at Yunxiao. So it's so easy to break it. Yunxiao did not take the pressure seriously at all. Instead, his eyes lit up as he conjured an ancient astral wind in his left hand and clenched his fingers. The wind suddenly increased and spread in all directions, blowing away all the flames in the sky. Not only that, Yu Qijin's Emperor Qi pressure was completely obliterated by the howling of the astral wind. What? Yu Qijin was shocked. Although he could not spread out his divine sense, judging from his age, Yunxiao had the strength of a martial emperor at most. No matter how heaven-defying his talent was and how he had reached the peak of martial honor, under any circumstances, he would have to surrender obediently under the pressure of his emperor aura. Even Huayin's heart trembled. Her Starfire Prairie seemed simple, as if it could be blown away by the wind, but it was not something that any cat or dog could do at will. But, the whirlwind in Yunxiao's hand had completely destroyed her move. Windmill, clear the way. Yunxiao laughed and clenched his left hand. The primordial astral wind immediately spread out with a whistling sound and scattered in all directions, while he turned into a thunderbolt again and fled. What a big joke. Yu Qijin let out a fierce shout, and his body shot out like a cannonball. Due to the excessive force of his glare, a bottomless black pit was directly blasted out on the ground. Huayin also turned into a flame and chased after him with all her might. Yunxiao's thunder escape was extremely fast, and she had been chasing him for a long time before, only catching up with him when he stopped. As Yunxiao fled, he carefully observed the surrounding terrain, and his heart filled with joy as he thought, as expected. It really was the place depicted on the map. He didn't think that there would be such a coincidence in the world. He was overjoyed to find that part of the burial ground was actually an information jade slip that City Lord Gengxing had given him at the small trade fair in Yufeng City. The map of this area had been drawn on it. Most importantly, the map had recorded a place where there was a high possibility that the mutated water elemental power could exist. At that time, Gengshing had thought that it was not worth much, so he had given it to Yunxiao. But, he had not expected that he would run into it. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel ecstatic. Although the two of them were following behind him, he didn't care at all. He recalled the situation described in the jade slip and headed towards the place where the water element might be present. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he rushed into a valley and stopped in a large open space. The two figures caught up to him in just a few breaths, and the moment they landed, two extremely strong pressures sealed the space around them, fearing that Yunxiao would escape again. Along the way, the three of them had disturbed many people who were cultivating an ambush. However, when they saw the speed at which they were flying, they knew that they were not to be trifled with. One by one, they shrank their heads and went back to doing what they were doing. Why aren't you running? Didn't you have a good time escaping? There's no way out now, right? Yuchi Jin said coldly. Of course. Yunxiao smiled indifferently. If I had insisted on running just now, would you have been able to catch me? Do you think I've exhausted my vital qi? Even the blood god's blood escape technique can't catch me. Do you have that speed? Both of their pupils constricted. What Yunxiao said did make sense. Judging from his calm and composed look, he did not seem to have exhausted his primordial qi. They could not help but feel a little suspicious. Could it be that you've suddenly come around and decided to join us? Huayin asked. Maybe. There's a chance, but not now. Do you two find anything wrong with this valley? Yunxiao asked with a smile. Do you two find anything wrong with this valley? The two of them were stunned, and they couldn't help but look around. Now that their spiritual sense was useless and they had to rely on their eyes, these experts felt very uncomfortable. It's just an ordinary valley, what's so strange about it? Humph. Yuchi Jin snorted disdainfully. Don't tell me that you've stopped running because you found this valley interesting. That's right, you're right again. Yunxiao stretched out his hand and pointed at a tall mountain in front of them as he said, What do you think that mountain peak looks like? Like what? The two of them followed his gaze, and Huayin suddenly said, It looks like a huge sword that's stabbed into the ground. Yuchi Jin's pupils trembled, and he suddenly swept his gaze around. His gaze fell on another cliff, and he said in surprise, This swan and I, this cliff feels like it's wearing a battle suit. Huayin was also shocked. She looked around and found that there were too many things here with extremely realistic shapes, many of which were similar to profound-level weapons. Why is this happening? Yuchi Jin asked in horror. What is this place? I'll need you two to help me solve my doubts, Yunxiao said with a solemn face. This is my first time coming to the boneyard. Can I speculate from the words boneyard? This place might have been a battlefield a long time ago, and what we see now is the remains of the martial artist's equipment. Isn't this swan and I a little too incredible? Even if it was a battlefield from a long time ago, why did it become so huge? Could it be that we were all fighting giants? The reason it's called the burial land is that remains of mystic artifacts and even the bones of experts are often found here, Yuchi Jin said in shock. It's called the burial land. From this point of view, it's true that this place used to be a battlefield, but why did such a huge mutation occur here? Oh. And the bones of experts? Yunxiao asked hurriedly. How strong? Yuchi Jin gave him a strange look and said, Of course, the strongest is only a martial supreme. After becoming a martial supreme, even after death, the body will not decay for hundreds or even thousands of years. The bone armor can even survive for tens of thousands of years without any powerful external force. What's with that look? Don't tell me you think there's a stronger skeleton? Yuchi Jin was also shocked by his own words. He hurriedly shook his head and said, Nonsense, nonsense. The godly state was just a legend. Since ancient times, other than the real spirits that only existed in myths, who had seen it or was sure that someone had reached that supreme level? At least, I've never heard of it. Yunxiao nodded gently. Indeed, there are no records. Even if there are, it's just a guess. However, who in the world could create such a grand seal on the burial land? It had directly sealed up a territory of tens of thousands of miles. This kind of shocking array might be able to be set up by combining the power of the throne's soaring light and the power of the sanctuary, but to maintain its operation for countless years without weakening in the slightest, even the throne and the sanctuary might not be able to do anything. Since someone was able to do it in the past, then it's extremely possible that he's reached a level far beyond his current level in martial arts. Yuqi Jin and Hui Yin were silent. What Yunxiao said did make sense, and they were suddenly caught in shock and contemplation. After a long while, a strange look appeared on Yuqi Jin's face. He gave Yunxiao a suspicious look and said, "Who are you?" He actually knew so much. Also, what's your purpose in telling us this? Are you begging us to let you go? He chuckled and said, "So what if these things once existed? They've long been buried in time and no longer exist. In addition, we didn't intend to take your life. We just hope that you'll be honest and hand over the treasure." "Let's not talk about the treasures first," Yunxiao said with a smile. "If you agree that there were immortal state experts in the past, and this place is very likely to be the work of an immortal state expert, then aren't you interested in exploring the place where the immortal state expert once lived?" Both of them were shocked. They have been in the Nine Heavens realm for decades, and their lifelong goal is to reach the peak of martial arts or even higher. Although they are still thousands of miles away from the peak, who doesn't want to know if there are stronger existences above the peak of martial arts? For a moment, great curiosity spread in the hearts of the two. Yuqi Jin smiled bitterly and said, "This suggestion is really attractive, but why should we explore with you? Don't you think you'll be a burden to us?" "This boneyard is full of dangers," Yunxiao said with a smile. "Isn't it good to have a burden as your last resort? If you encounter any danger, just throw me out. Moreover, with the two of you guarding against me, do you think I'll run away?" He looked at the two of them with a smile. In fact, he was thinking the exact opposite. With these two powerful martial supremes around, it would be much safer if they were to encounter any danger. Yuqi Jin pondered for a moment and said, "Yes, I have to say that your suggestion is very good. That's right, I have to plant a seal on you. Otherwise, there's no need for further discussion." "All right, deal." Yunxiao's calm attitude stunned both of them. Once they were sealed by each other's unique technique, they were completely under each other's control, and no one would agree to such a proposal. "What I'm saying is that I'm going to plant a restriction on you," said Yuqi Jin in a daze. He thought Yunxiao had misheard him. "I know," Yunxiao said with a smile. "I've made such a great sacrifice for the sake of a win-win situation for all of us. I hope you can be magnanimous." The two martial sovereigns blushed when they heard this, but they would not give in just because they blushed. Yuqi Jin condensed a strange mark in his hand and threw it at Yunxiao. Yunxiao did not avoid it, but let it hit his body. Immediately, a strange power began to spread through his meridians and sink into his limbs and bones. Only then did Yuqi Jin feel at ease. He nodded and said, "You're indeed very magnanimous. Don't worry, this restriction is just a symbol. It can let me know your movements at any time and control you appropriately when necessary. As long as you're obedient, I can guarantee that you'll be fine." Yunxiao smiled and said nothing. The power of his bright moon divine body slowly circulated in his body and began to purify Yuqi Jin's sealing power. Although the martial emperor's seal was a little stronger, he would be able to slowly devour it if he was given enough time. Hui Yin was also relieved. Yuqi Jin's strength was no less than hers, so Yunxiao would never be able to escape from the seal he had placed. Only then did she slowly begin to observe the valley. The three of them slowly walked forward in the valley. The more they looked, the more shocked they became. Every mountain and stone was vividly lifelike, as if they were transformed from various physical objects. In front of the valley, a strange mountain blocked their way. Yunxiao was taken aback. The mountain was exactly the place described in the jade slip that might contain water element. It looked towering, but it was much smaller than an ordinary mountain. "Do you think it's possible that it's some kind of extremely powerful forbidden technique that petrified everyone and everything in an instant?" Yu Qijin asked seriously. And the petrified people have been destroyed over countless years, leaving only a small number of profound artifact fossils? What? Huayin's heart turned cold. A technique that can instantly petrify such a large scene, could it really be performed by a godly state expert? Yunxiao looked at the mountain for a while, then suddenly recited, "Don't you guys think that this mountain looks like something?" Like what? It's like a palace. Don't tell me the palace has been petrified? Huayin's heart jolted in shock. The more she blurted it out, the more she felt that it was true. The shock on her face was difficult to conceal. If it's a palace, it's easy, Yunxiao said. We just have to split it open. If it's empty, it'll be fine. This buy-in. The two of them were stunned for a moment. It was indeed a good idea. Yu Qijin hesitated for a moment and said, "You guys step back a little, let me do it." Yunxiao and Huayin retreated hundreds of meters away and watched quietly in the air. A light flashed in Yu Qijin's hand, and a bright battle saber appeared in his hand. The sword light illuminated the area. He held the saber with both hands and poured his power into it. The saber's body pulsed with 100-meter-long saber light, slowly pressing down on the mountain. He didn't dare to make any big movements. After all, the Blood God Palace's formation was monitoring him from tens of thousands of miles up in the sky. If the fluctuations were too strong and shot into the sky, he would immediately provoke the people from the Blood God Palace. Boom, boom, boom. The earth trembled, and the huge rocks on the mountain shattered. They began to crack under the pressure of the blade light, and the cracks continued to spread. The mountain was gradually opened. Yu Qijin's pupils suddenly shrank, and he hurriedly retracted his saber light in shock. The crack in front of him was getting bigger and bigger, expanding uncontrollably, and completely opening up the front half of a mountain. The three of them were all shocked. There was actually a flight of stairs in front of them that extended all the way to the inside of the mountain. A rotten smell spread out from inside, as if a rotten pomelo had been cut open, giving off a pungent smell. The real Kasaya is really a palace. Huayin's eyes were filled with shock as she muttered to herself. Yunxiao frowned. The palace should be similar to the demon palaces of the demon race, but its structure was much more complicated. The staircase led straight inside, so deep that the end could not be seen. According to the records in the Jade Slip, he had only sensed the existence of a mutated water element near the mountain, but he could not find it. It seemed that the person who recorded the Jade Slip either did not think of the hidden hall in the mountain, or he did not have the ability to split it open. Even when Yu Qijin's knife slashed down, it only opened the entrance of the palace. The entire palace was like a beautiful jade embedded in the stone skin, without the slightest damage. It was just that it was too ancient and simple, and the weapon essence had already disappeared. The two of you, do you want to take the risk and go in to take a look? Yu Qijin's expression was grave as he asked. He himself felt a little indecisive. Can you hold back from going in? Huayin forced a smile. I've been cultivating in the boneyard for so many years, and I've only been cultivating in a treasured land that's clear of the earth fire. I've basically never been to other places. I've only heard that there are many strange things about it, but I didn't expect it to be this strange. It's simply inconceivable. Of course we're going in, Yunxiao said with a smile. There might be secrets left behind by ancient divine realm experts in there. Both of them were shocked. The word divine realm was too attractive to them, but it was even more attractive to Yunxiao. Yu Qijin turned his head and gave Yunxiao a look, then said with a smile, "Young man, I've kept you alive until now. It's time for you to play your role. Come on, I have faith in you." Yunxiao put on a bitter face and said in a speechless manner, "This passage is filled with decay and death. It's not a good place at first glance. How are you playing my role? Are you trying to kill me in disguise? If it doesn't come in handy now, when will it? Let's go in." Yu Qijin appeared behind Yunxiao in a flash, then gave him a hard push and drove him forward. Huayin couldn't stand it anymore and comforted him, "Don't worry. You'll be fine with the two of us martial emperor powerhouses protecting you." We'll take action immediately if anything happens. Yunshao cursed in his heart and said, make a move, your sister. If you're so capable, then go ahead yourself. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm afraid of encountering danger and can let you two block me with your wooden clubs, I would have shaken you off long ago. If Yuqi Jin and Yuqi Yunshao knew what Yunshao was thinking, he wondered what kind of expression they would have. Yunshao did not waste any time. He was a man who was not afraid of anything, and there was an 80 to 90% chance that what he was looking for was in the palace. So, he took the lead and walked in. The smell of decay hit him in the face, making him feel nauseated. He frowned and a gentle breeze blew on his body, blowing the smell of decay behind him. He controlled his strength just right. The two people behind him suddenly covered their noses. Yuqi Jin said angrily, can't you make the wind stronger and cover the three of us? Yunshao turned around and sneered. Do you think the wind doesn't consume your primordial qi? Why don't you spread out your emperor qi and protect everyone? Yuqi Jin was furious. The emperor qi of the 9 heavens could naturally expel this rotten smell, but it was no different from using a cannon to kill a mosquito. Moreover, this passage was so long that he couldn't see the end. God knew what the situation was inside. He had to carefully accumulate power to avoid any accidents. Let's go. Huiyin pinched her nose and said, let's not waste any more time. She knew that Yunshao was doing it on purpose because he was dissatisfied, so she did not take it seriously. Humph. Yunshao snorted and led the way while singing a song happily. I'll whip you with my steel whip. Yuqi Jin was irritated when he heard this. He wanted to kill him with a slap, but he could only hold it in and follow him unhappily. Yunshao looked unruly on the surface, but in his heart, he was paying close attention. Because the palace had been petrified on the outside, it had been sealed in the darkness for many years. At this moment, when the sun shone down, all kinds of things inside began to die one by one, turning into smoke and disappearing. Suddenly, Yunshao stopped and looked ahead with a serious expression. Yuqi Jin and Huiyin were also stunned. They followed his gaze and saw that the stairs in front of them were more spacious. There were two people kneeling opposite each other on the stairs, and they had long become mummies. Because they had been in a closed environment for a long time, and the two of them must have been strong people when they were alive, their bodies did not decompose. At this moment, the sun shone in, and the two's bodies began to change. They gradually emitted smoke and a rancid smell. In front of the three people, they disappeared in the air, leaving only a pile of ashes on the ground. The way they knelt was a little strange. It seemed like they were using some kind of secret technique. But why did he die on these steps? Yuqi Jin asked with a frown. Yunshao did not say a word. He quickly walked up and observed the pile of ashes. The ground around the ashes was dark brown, which was much darker than the color next to it. What did you see? Huiyin pinched her nose and showed a look of disgust. Women always liked clean things and hated dirty things. This man is indeed using some kind of secret technique, Yunshao said calmly. The dark-colored spot on the ground is the blood they left on the surface of the stone steps. This secret technique is either used at the cost of one's own life or used by others at the cost of their own. What kind of secret technique is that? Huiyin was shocked. Yunshao shook his head. It doesn't matter what secret technique it is anymore. After so many years, even the strongest secret technique has long been destroyed.